the MoxStars podcast. I am Menace, one of your hosts, and I'm here with Flash. Welcome in, everybody. If you didn't know it, this is the #1 podcast on the internet for Magic the Gathering and Dr. Pepper. We are also the home of the mid-range mindset, the naughty boys of cardboard, and your favorite podcast. And if we're not your favorite podcast, we're going to be with this episode because today we are breaking down Sisay, WEATHERLIGHT Captain, and its influence on cEDH and kind of running through a history of lists. But before that, if you'd like to support the show, you can find us on YouTube, where you can like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more notifications. You can also find us on all major podcasting platforms, where you can give us a 5-star review, and you can try really hard to make us look super duper cool, but we're the naughty boys of cardboard. We're already pretty freaking cool. You can also support us directly on Patreon, where you can become an official Pepperhead for $3 a month, and that gets you 1 free entry into our bi-weekly giveaways. You can also become a cherry vanilla Pepperhead, like UWP Court, K-Mr. K, and Will Rule, and get 2 free entries into each of our bi-weekly giveaways. And this week's giveaway, which we will be finding a winner at the end of this episode, will receive a set of our MoxStars tokens and a copy of Harrogast Erupting Nullkite. And we'll be deciding that at the end of the show. All right. We're in. We went through the stuff. We're here now.
We mentioned Dr. Pepper.
We did mention Dr. Pepper, but Willie still has not.
Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, Willie still hasn't sent us any peeps though.
Willie, what's the deal? Like, honestly, we just want some peeps.
We're just here for peeps, man. Just if you don't have my address, just reach out. Or I can send you Flash's address and you send him peeps.
Oh no, don't have my assassination coordinates out there.
Okay. All right. I won't do that. All right. We're here to talk about some Magic, and there obviously is a lot of new cards out there that people are testing, and the prices are starting to determine what is valuable and what people are valuing as far as like competitive cards and what they want to build moving forward. Like there's a couple cards out there that are just like kind of nutty, like Ocelot Pride, which I'm starting to see why it was a mythic, because it is potentially more busted than Ragavan in the right deck. There's also the Soul of whatever, and it's like this Soul Warden that's like whenever another creature enters, you get an energy and gain 1 life. And then whenever you attack, you can pay 3 energy, put 2 +1/+1 counters and a flying counter on an attacking creature. So like the combination of those things with Ocelot Pride makes for crazy energy generation, crazy token generation, and crazy first strike lifelink flying creatures. So I've been seeing that a lot on Arena, and I can see it being a very like competitive and viable deck in Modern moving forward. So you can kind of see like those cards rising in price. There is another card out there that's rising in price because it has value beyond Modern and is making quite the show in cEDH, and that is Nadu, Winged Wisdom. This is a 3-mana, 1 a green and a blue, legendary creature bird wizard, has flying, it's a 3/4. Creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, put it into your hand. This ability triggers only twice each turn. What are your first thoughts?
Why is that good?
Right? Well, that is a justified first thought on this.
Well, I'm just asking, like, what Obviously, it's good, but like, how good is it? What
This is
value? Yeah.
Yeah, this is so good that when you take all of the cards from Magic's history and combine it into a stack of 99 with this at the helm, it wins tournaments. The first weekend that this was legal, it was pretty much at the final table of most tournaments nationwide. And not to mention one of the local tournaments, cEDH 6, that just happened over in Issaquah this last weekend. It was two of the top four decks, and it won the tournament. The reason it's good is because there are so many cards out there that just allow you to target for free, like Lightning Greaves. There's a few other lists out there that are running like untaps and like tap or untap, and then you just kind of keep the ball rolling. So basically, Lightning Greaves is the most busted card in this deck. And if you watch the most recent episode of Play to Win, you could see you can go ahead and watch what it's like to play against Nadu, where a player takes, 20 minutes or more to resolve a single turn, where they create a loop. And the loop isn't like, that's the thing, is that each action needs to be like gone through. It isn't just like, okay, so I present this loop where I constantly target creatures. It's like, no, you have to target, see what you hit, and then go ahead and then take that action. So there's a lot that goes on throughout this turn, but 20 minutes later, we have a winner, and it's Nadu after they create an infinite loop with Cephalid Coliseum and drawing and discarding and then reshuffling their graveyard into their library with endurance, and until all of their lands are on the battlefield and until they get infinite mana generated through some other source like Lotus Petal and Eternal Witness. So there's a lot. There's a lot with this card. And the reason that I wanted to talk about it today is because there are whispers and demands for it to be banned. And while some people will say, yeah, dude, a lot of people are saying, nah, dude.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
That was a good joke, man.
What do you want from me?
A fake laugh. I don't know. I wish there was I wish I'd had a soundtrack for that.
I mean, you have the soundboard.
I know, but I don't have I don't have sitcom, audience laughter, which is creepy, by the way. Like, do you know the history behind like the sitcom laugh track audience thing?
An evil magician trapped their souls. They just have to laugh for eternity.
It's
like
something like that, yeah.
Like Stay Tuned, I think.
Back to Nadu. Nadu is crazy because basically you can flicker Nadu. There aren't a lot of flicker effects in these decks, and people are trying to like find ways to interact with it. And that opinion of being like Nadu is because there haven't been a lot of commanders to like really like inject themselves into cEDH and have an influence right away. It takes work and it takes effort to like, it almost feels like you're forcing it. But this one is so seamless because it's like seemingly already figured out. But a lot of people are just saying, get out there, make the adjustments. Now that you know you're going to see this, they're calling it Nadu Summer. Now you know you're going to see this summer until the next ban announcement comes. Adjust. Put the right cards in your deck. Know that this is like you're likely to see this. We do this all the time with other decks, right? We saw, Dargo start to rise, and so you start to see like different tech being put into different lists that are like stacks oriented or like mid-range oriented to deal with like that type of thing to give yourself a better chance. And that is what the argument is for this, is like, give yourself the best chance. Just change like your set a little bit, because this is so popular that you can probably justifiably take other pieces of interaction out to favor pieces of interaction that are going to handle this a little bit better. Like Dress Down, like Dress Down's amazing. It's one of the best cards in blue to keep the game going. So if you guys are unfamiliar with Dress Down, it's 1 in a blue enchantment with flash that when it enters the battlefield, you draw a card, and then creatures lose all abilities. And then at the beginning of the end step, sacrifice it. So it's, or at the end of the turn, sacrifice it, one of those two things. But it's really great to stop a Nadu from going off. A lot of people are saying Final Showdown from Outlaws of Thunder Junction is one of the other ways to stop it, because it has the ability to, it says creatures lose all abilities as part of its spree cost. The one thing with that is, because I was talking about flickering Nadu, and when you flicker Nadu, all those creatures lose that ability, and then it comes back down, and then it gives them all that, like, the ability again. And so you can retarget them and get new triggers off of them after they've already hit their 2 trigger limit. So the thing with Final Showdown is that once it resolves, as long as you have like a ghostly flicker or some way to flicker Nadu, you can just lift it up, drop it back down, and then keep the ball rolling. So it's not the most effective way to deal with Nadu, but it is a way that people are like teching that in, because it is also a board wipe. So you can, if you have the mana, just deal with Nadu in that way, because targeted removal is not going to do it. So, Flash, any opinions on Nadu before we move on?
No, I mean, I just feel like why it's not going to get banned. That's just adjust. It requires you to play a couple cards that were on the fringe of playable to begin with. Just adjust to the meta. That's what this game is.
Yeah. It seems almost like an easy way out, to beg for its banning. The only other reason that I could see it getting banned is because, like you said, a lot of the cards are like fringe at best. So, like, you start plugging in cards that are weak that without Nadu. Like, so if you're able to just like hyper focus Nadu, keep it off the battlefield, and then all of a sudden, like, they're sitting there with a handful of cards that can't do anything because they can't cast Nadu. So it is fragile in a way. It doesn't have ward, which is great. I'm glad they didn't give this fucking thing ward. But yeah, you're right. It's like a lot of the cards are weak without it. And then the big thing, and the reason that it could be considered banned, is because in casual, a lot of those cards are casual cards, or they haven't been considered competitive ever. And then Nadu takes it to like this crazy level where you just create a value engine out of a 3-mana commander. So
I guess, I don't know, man, it dies to Doomblade though.
The argument that settles all arguments. Yeah, I mean, you're right. The thing about that even is that Doomblade is technically a cantrip or a land drop for Nadu, because it also triggers off of opponents targeting it. So, that's where I shrug my shoulders and I go, did they really test this at the commander level? Like, it's fine, and it's fine in 1v1. Like, just the one thing that I'm worried about, and the rules committee will have to determine, we are not them. We are just the heralds of Dr. Pepper. But they will have to determine whether or not this is fun at a casual table. And that's ultimately it, I guess. That's up to them. So, TBD on the banning of Nadu. Like I said, does it deserve to be banned? Nadu. All right. We're moving on. There are new cards being injected into the pool yet again. We are on a pace now over the course of the summer where we'll be seeing a new set or new cards once every month or so until about November. So whether that's like secret layers, maybe that's just the way they're going to be doing it now, is like once the set drops, you get a week or two to breathe, and then you get new cards. And
yeah, no, the product cycle is sped up. It's a constant product cycle, and it is sped up.
Yeah. And Now we're looking at Assassin's Creed cards, which, since I'm on Scryfall anyway, we're looking at now all these new cards from Assassin's Creed. We're not going to talk about any of them in particular today, but as you can see as I scroll down on YouTube, there are a lot. There are a lot of new cards, a lot of new legendary artifacts, everything that cares about historic. It is definitely a unique set. It's like right off the bat, I don't see anything that's particularly interesting for myself, but this is definitely a product.
Yeah, it's got some reprints, black market connections, sort of feast and famine, right?
Yep.
Couple decent reprints in the set.
Yeah, sort of light and shadow as well. And then Assassin's Trophy, a few other things. But I think what people are going to be most interested in outside of the black market connections reprint are going to be all these new legendary creatures that they get to build commander decks out of. There's also some really cool sagas. But you have this to look forward to. I will take a closer look at it, and we'll dive in once the full set is announced next week. But
yeah, not an IP I have any particular connection with.
Yeah, I think the games like after Black Flag, which if you're unfamiliar is a pirate-based like ship combat Assassin's Creed. That was the best, and then ever since it's kind of been on this like downward slope of popularity, and now we're here. It's now getting in a sort of a resurrection. This isn't going to do anything for non-Magic Assassin's Creed fans, and I don't think this really pulls any Assassin's Creed fans into Magic, but it just sort of like rewards people who like Assassin's Creed who also play Magic? ? So
It is an opportunity to sell more product.
Yeah, if you are of a differing opinion out there, listeners, feel free to hop on YouTube and give us a comment as to why this, as an Assassin's Creed fan, is bringing you into Magic, or if you're a Magic fan but not necessarily Assassin's Creed fan, why this interests you. So let us know in the comments. That being said, we're moving on. We are going to our main subject of the day, which is Sisay, Weatherlight Captain. If you guys are unfamiliar, Flash, do you have the card in front of you?
I could pull it up.
Sure thing. Sisay is a commander card, essentially. It's also legal in Modern, but printed in the original Modern Horizons almost 5 years ago, which seems insane to say, right? We get a Modern Horizons set every 2 years, and it seems like it wasn't that long ago that we were seeing Sisay for the first time, but it has since become a cEDH All-Star, and on EDH Top 16, it has 371 entries in tournament sizes of 64 people or greater, and it has the second highest number of conversions with 87, with a 23.45% conversion rate. This is probably, well, as you can see, it is the most popular 5-color good pile that exists on the scene. So, Flash, whenever you're ready with it, go ahead and tell us what Sisay does.
Yeah, sure. 2 colorless, 1 white, human soldier, legendary creature, 2/2. Gets +1/+1 for each color among other legendary permanents you control, and then you can pay 1 of each color to search your library for a legendary permanent card with CMC less than Sisay's power, put it onto the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. I guess it's important that that ability doesn't tap, so you can do it multiple times.
Yeah, this is one of the... I think this is similar to Najeela, where like Najeela is also another 5-color good pile just doesn't happen to be as popular as Sisay. So when we click on Sisay here in EDH Top 16, which is where we'll be drawing all of our data from, you can see that it has plenty of first place finishes, and it makes the final table, has made the final table quite a few times, and it is just consistent. It is mostly a list that, when under my first impressions, was creature based. Like, these combos were creature based, and so a lot of my stacks based builds, I would have Containment Priest, because that answers a lot of like creature based combo decks that just want to cheat things onto the battlefield. But I was maybe pleasantly surprised. I think a lot of my impressions from decks on this top 16 list are actually negative. Like, I've just gotten my cheeks clapped by them enough times that I have solid memory of them. But I remember putting down a Containment Priest against a Sisay thinking, I'm going to get one more turn. I was wrong because Sisay isn't actually a creature-based list. The only creature-based list that has seen any success was made by Rebel Sun, and then every other list has some sort of Planeswalker loop that involves Aminatu, Nicol Bolas the Dragon God, and Oath of Teferi. So here we have on screen on YouTube from the Commander's Herald, which is a great source of journalism for Commander. We have an introduction to Sisay, Weatherlight Captain. And if you go through and you read this, it will explain most of the strategy itself. It'll give you test hands. It'll give you like explanations of combos. And so here with Aminatu, Nicol Bolas Dragon God, and Oath of Teferi, what you're able to do with Oath of Teferi, you're able to activate Planeswalker's abilities twice. Nicol Bolas Dragon God gives you the ability, or gives itself all loyalty abilities of all other Planeswalkers on the battlefield. And then Aminatu has one very important ability that says you can -1, exile another target permanent you own, then return it to the battlefield under your control. So, since Nicol Bolas gives itself the abilities of all other Planeswalkers, with just those two, you're able to flicker themselves infinitely. You don't get anywhere, but with the addition of Oath of Teferi, you're allowed to activate twice, and so you can then draw a card. Each opponent exiles a card from their hand or a permanent they control with Nicol Bolas the Dragon God. So you get to draw your entire library and then make people discard or exile cards from their hand until they have no cards in their hand, and then they exile all their permanents, and then you basically leave them without any options, and you just go ahead and win the game. But also, Aminatu has draw a card and then put a card from your hand on top of your library. So once you get to a certain point, you can just, I guess you can draw your entire library until you get the cards you need, and then keep going from there. So this also allows you to untap one of your lands or flicker a land you control, since you can activate Aminatu twice and generate infinite mana, blah, blah, blah. You get card draw, infinite ETBs, infinite, leave the battlefield, infinite mana. Like there's all, this is the combo that most Sisay players pursue when playing the list. So let's go to our first Sisay list on the thing, and this is a list called Sisay Unrivaled and this was played on the 26th of November in 2022. This is the first tournament on record for EDH Top 16, and so even though Sisay Weatherlight Captain came out in Modern Horizons 1, people didn't start considering it as a cEDH commander or option. Maybe they were playing it before EDH or EDH Top 16 was recording data, but there was also 4 months of data prior that exists where Sisay did not. So this is the first tournament that it appeared on EDH Top 16, and this list placed it says unrivaled. It placed 26th. It didn't do all that well, but you can see right away, if you're on YouTube, is that it is Planeswalker heavy. It has 9 Planeswalkers, 33 creatures, 8 instants, which is probably why it got 26th, and then 14 artifacts, 5 enchantments, 1 being Oath of Teferi, and 30 lands. So, notably, Sisay allows you to go search for a legendary permanent. So you can also grab artifacts. You can grab pretty much, anything. That's why Oath of Teferi is great, because it's tutorable off of Sisay. But this list, as you can, as we talk about it, is very heavy on creatures. There are a few creature combos, which we'll get to later in the episode. But this list in particular is running things like Gwenna, Eyes of Gaia, Lorna of the Third Path for like some flexibility so that you can, destroy artifacts or enchantments on the battlefield. And then there's some interesting tech here. It's Dynaheir, Invoker Adept. It's 1 and then Jeskai mana, blue, red, white. Legendary creature, human wizard, 4/4 with haste. That says you may activate abilities of other creatures you control as though those creatures had haste. You can tap it when you activate an ability this turn by spending 4 or more mana to activate it. Copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. So sort of a Strionic Resonator, but creature-based on a legendary creature that you can tutor out with Sisay. Sisay Weatherlight Captain is also notable for being 3 mana, 2 and a white. And so if you go down and you look through everyone's artifact list, Jeweled Lotus just naturally exists here because it is just 1 Jeweled Lotus activation away. The other thing that is also notable about these decks that has seen them find more success throughout time is Ignoble Hierarch and Noble Hierarch, which are both 1 green mana dorks that tap for 1 taps for Jund. That's Ignoble Hierarch. And then the other one taps for Bans. Noble Hierarch. But they both have Exalted. And so what you're able to do is swing with Sisay or swing with Sisay as it attacks alone. It gets a +1/+1, increasing its power to 4. And then as long as you're able to activate, you can go grab Derevi to untap and then do some other shenanigans that would allow you to activate again and then keep rolling through your combos. So Ignoble Hierarch and Noble Hierarch have definitely contributed to the success of the deck as well. Just that one little power is usually enough to like help push it to the next level. So let's see. Oh, there are other Planeswalkers that also exist within the list that help it go infinite. Tyvar is not one of those infinite pieces, but it just helps smooth out like mana dorks, activating the instant they come down. And then Saheeli Rai, which is a card that I didn't think I'd be talking about today, but when I started looking through everyone's lists, they all had it present. Saheeli Rai is a Planeswalker from Kaladesh, which was in one of my first ever packs of cards ever opened. And it's a 3 mana Planeswalker that says +1, scry 1, Saheeli Rai deals 1 damage to each opponent. And so this is one of the ways that if you're not on Thassa's Oracle, which seemingly none of these decks are, this is another Planeswalker that you can loop with Nicol Bolas, Aminatu, that will just kill the table after you go through your loop. Infinite flickers, infinite everything. So yeah, there's another way to win the game. Oko is also present, and then you also have Teferi, which just sort of like locks down the table as a pseudo Grand Abolisher. We move into the next list. It's by one of the guys who made one of the first lists, Unrivaled, but this is Sisay Unrivaled build. And as you can see, as we scroll down, there it is, Agatha Soul Cauldron there, along with Chromatic Orrery. kind of has like the same purpose, but it is, it does allow you to spend mana as though it were mana of any color, but it also taps and gives you a Sisay activation. That's actually a super underrated card. Chromatic Ori has been out for a while, and it has made the cut for a lot of competitive lists. I guess I just don't value it enough, but it is underrated. I will say that. There is another interesting planeswalker from pretty much all of these lists once you get further in time, but it is Dahada, Binder of Wills. Flash whenever you're ready on that one.
Yeah. 5 loyalty, +2. Up to 1 target legendary creature gains Vigilance, Lifelink, and Indestructible until your next turn. -3. Reveal the top 4 cards of your library. Put any number of legendary cards from among them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. Create a treasure token for each card put into your graveyard this way. -11. Gain control of all non-land permanents until end of turn. Untap them. They gain haste until end of turn.
Nice. Yeah. So Dahada itself usually is a commander. And like I've played against it. It is so fast and ruthless and vicious that it finds value here. And I think its most valuable ability is its -3. It's reveal the top 4 cards of your library and then put any number of legendaries into your hand, but create a treasure for each card put into your graveyard this way. You have the option just to create 4 treasures off of that. Like, you don't have to put any of the legendaries into your hand. And so that pretty much pushes you right into a Sisay activation, which is pretty damn good. I guess the other like upside to that is if you're running your combo, I guess you just go for your Saheeli Rai lines instead of just being fun with a -11. But it's great because Dahada's -3 sort of like pushes this deck further ahead. It offers more consistency. With this list, we do go down into the creatures and we see some like pretty cool stuff like as the deck has evolved over time. And there's actually like right here, it's Olivia Mobilize for War, which is an older card for one of the Innistrad sets, I think. Yeah, I believe so. For 1, a black, and a red, you have a legendary vampire knight with flying. It's a 3/3. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may discard a card. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. It gains haste, and it becomes a vampire in addition to its other types. So I'm guessing that +1/+1 counter just like helps like with Sisay's power in activations and everything like that. I don't think the haste really comes into play unless you're going for your Fabro Elder or your Bloom Tender or something like that. As we can see, Lotho here comes into play as we get into more recent lists. Obviously, the treasure generation, super valuable. But then we're seeing Phyrexian Metamorph as the One Ring has come into the meta. Sakashima the Imposter is also proven to be valuable. And then a card that I haven't really seen in a long time that's from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, Colossal Sky Turtle makes its way into the list. This is a creature that has 2 channel abilities. 2 and a green, discard it, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. That's actually a great ability. And then you also have, for 1 and a blue, discard Colossal Sky Turtle, return target creature to its owner's hand. I'm guessing that the purpose here is to deal with Grand Abolisher. Like, to be able to, like, interact, or like, to bounce a... Gosh... my brain's skipping a beat here. A Drannith Magistrate, to its owner's hand for little to no cost, right? So, Colossal Sky Turtle turns out pretty amazing. I like for an uncommon from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, like this is actually legit. I've never really considered it as an option, but it rocks. It does way more than I ever thought it did. So cool to see.
At least 2 things.
does at least two things that don't require casting. So it gets around Teferis, it gets around, Grand Abolishers. This deck is also running some Emil Dockside loops that other decks weren't running. And then the Infinite Mana is obviously just too good to pass up. I think Kinnan is a really great entry here. And then just like a lot of utility throughout this list. This is clearly the refinement that we've seen over time with all the new sets. And I do wonder if MH3 is going to like bring anything new into it. But yeah, this list is amazing, especially with Touch the Spirit Realm. Again, another channel ability that just sort of like removes a creature or artifact from the battlefield to help you take away any stacks that might be hindering your game plan. All right, let's go into another fun list. This is one that I found. It was updated about 10 months ago, so even after the introduction of Agatha's Soul Cauldron, this player actually didn't particularly find it interesting enough to include it, but they're running a Kiki-Jiki shell here instead of sort of pursuing those infinite loop lines with Oath of Teferi and Nicol Bolas Dragon God. What they're doing with Aminatou in their list is they're using it to either flicker Vivian of the Hunt to get additional, basically birthing pod triggers, or to flicker birthing pod to keep the loop going. That also means that they're running cards like Corridor Monitor and some other stuff. I pulled this list up because I thought it was incredibly interesting that the deck can be flexible and versatile enough to include other combo lines to keep your opponents from guessing what you're doing. So even things like Plain-Bound Accomplice, which I really wanted to see pop off in decks like Rocco, but this like is for 2 and a red. It's a 1/3 that has pay a red, put a Planeswalker card from your hand onto the battlefield, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. This is also from Modern Horizons 1. So it's basically a sneak attack, but for Planeswalkers only. And I guess the combo is you sneak attack Vivian of the Hunt onto the battlefield, and then you activate its ability to sacrifice it to search for a creature with mana value 1 greater. And you go ahead and you grab the Felidar Guardian, you flicker the Vivian, you activate it again, sacrifice the Felidar Guardian, go get the Karmic Guide, flicker it again, bring the Felidar Guardian back, flicker the Vivian again, and then sacrifice, go for Kiki-Jiki, and blah, 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 blah. Crazy. Kind of a crazy line, but it works. And like I said, they haven't included the Soul Cauldron. They're far heavier on the instance than some of these other lists, which is great. I love that. But yeah, I thought this was like worth talking about since they decided to not go for the Oath of Teferi lines. Instead, they're including some pretty unique tech in Cult. Flash, tell me if you've ever heard of this enchantment. It's called Cultist of the Absolute.
Yeah, I mean, I've played it in Yoshimaru.
Oh, yeah. You know what it does then?
Yeah. Commander creatures you have get +3/+3, and ward pay 3 life. There's other text, but that seems to be the important stuff.
Yeah, giving Sisay that +3/+3 is that's just insane. It's such unique tech. I didn't really think of this being an option ever, but for black mana.
I think the reach is that you can tutor for it off the bat, like with the first activation if you need to, and then you're pretty much good to go on whatever else you need to tutor for.
Oh yeah, for the rest of the game. That is spicy. Like you said, I never would have thought of something like that. But this list seems to have thought of everything to help the Kiki-Jiki line sort of like pop off. So it's clever in its intention because Kiki-Jiki is also legendary. So there are ways to like tutor it out, go for it, and then I'm trying to think of anything else here that maybe helps. The thing is that this deck just dies to anything that interacts with Kiki Jiki, but it's clever nonetheless. I really like it. But the last list that we're going to talk about today is one that probably made the most waves on introduction, and one of the best cEDH deck list. One of the best cEDH players or cEDH content creators in recent memory is Rebel Sun. And Rebel Sun delivered this list upon us about a year or two ago, and they've updated it to its Sisay Elk 2024, and it's updated about 2 months ago, but this is a Sisay Gigantha companion deck. And if you all are unfamiliar with Gigantha, basically the companion restriction is that no card in your starting deck has more than one of the same mana symbol in its mana cost. This is the creature-based combo deck that I was talking about earlier that sort of just like catches you by surprise. Like it when it goes, it doesn't stop. It pursues the line and it wins through Najeela activations. So basically, the line for this is you have Sisay, Gigantha, and it takes about 11 mana to go do this thing. But you activate Gigantha, searching, and you go and you grab Derevi, because Gigantha gives you +2 power on this thing. So it makes Sisay a 4/4 that you go get Derevi, untap the Gigantha, tap Gigantha again, now that Sisay is at 5 power. If I'm doing that right. Yeah, now at 5, and you go get Samut, I believe, and then everything has haste, so you can just go ahead and swing in. Once you get those combat triggers, you can then go and untap one of your, or untap Gigantha, activate again after first strike damage from Samut, and then go grab Najeela, get your other trigger, untap Gigantha one more time, and then tap it again to activate Najeela, and then you have infinite untap triggers from Derevi moving forward, so you just go ahead and you activate Najeela infinitely and win the game? Question mark? It's pretty solid. Like it happens so quick, and I guess if you were to interact with it at any point, if you can remove the Derevi, remove the Samut, any of those pieces just sort of like breaks this deck's back. So you got to know when it is your time to shine. You got to know when to go for it. So this list, incredibly unique, because most people would think that a companion is a restriction, but Rebel Sun has turned it into one of the deck's greatest strengths. Having the ability to tap for Wooburg, turns out, is really great. I think a lot of lists were looking at even playing Timeless Lotus, and that's why we saw other lists with Chromatic Orrery as well. Being able to tap for Wooburg is incredibly good. It's really great for Sisay.
It lets the deck do the thing.
It lets the deck do the thing. They've also found other ways to supplement their loss of Grand Abolisher by having this companion restriction through Kutsil, Malamet Exemplar, which is introduced to us in Lost Caverns of Ixalan. 1, a green, and a white. Your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. That's an incredibly powerful ability. And then whenever one or more creatures you control, each with power greater than its base power, deals damage to or combat damage to a player, draw a card. So Sisay, if it's able to get through with this on the battlefield, allows you to draw a card. That's icing on the cake, right? And then you also have Spellskite in here to sort of protect your win conditions. Gosh, this list is tight. I actually love it. It only runs one sorcery, Culling Ritual. One of probably the best board wipe. Probably the best board wipe in cEDH. I think that we're starting to see like board wipes come back into the mix of what people are considering as removal. But this one, as long as it generates positive mana, allows you to just explode out of the gates and sort of like send everyone back to the Stone Age. So I think we were all really hot on Culling Ritual when it was first announced with Strixhaven, and I'm glad to see it still makes a cut. The interaction here, very tight knit. Fierce Guardianship, Deflecting Swat. They're actually playing Chance for Glory, which meets the Gigantha companion requirement, but that allows you to take an extra turn. Very similar to, and it's instant speed. So, yeah, very similar to Final Fortune. And then all the artifacts. This one, again, no Agatha. This one, yeah, is no Agatha's Soul Cauldron. But I wonder why. They have Sneak Attack, Rhystic Study, no Oath of Teferi. Oh, because you can't run Nicol Bolas, Dragon God. Okay. Makes sense. Really great list. Love it here from Rebel Sun. Flash, any takeaways from Sisay Weatherlight Captain as a commander?
No, I mean it's interesting that it is a 5-color commander that is not just your typical 5-color good stuff pile.
Yeah, it runs a lot of different lines, or it has a lot of different options. But I think that when you commit to Sisay, you do ultimately have to commit to one of those lines. And
well, your deck has to have win cons, I think, at a minimum.
Right. Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess what I mean by that is that you have to pick one of these options, and I guess by showing lists with different options, I was trying to like give a broader perspective in that way. But it's like you got to go for the Dragon God Aminatu lines with Oath of Teferi, or you can go the Gigantha Companion creature-based combo lines, or you also have options with Kiki Jiki apparently, and maybe there's more out there that we just haven't seen.
I mean, because it Sisay searches for legendaries, so there's valid legendary enchantments, valid legendary artifacts, right?
Yeah, totally.
Valid legendary lands, right?
Totally, yeah. Like
is Talion Gates? Speaking of channel, is Talion Gates legendary or no? The new one.
I'm not sure, actually, but Talion.
But you know what I mean? I mean, there's because it is a wide open restriction. As long as there's legendary on, or is it? I don't have the card from it. Is it just historic or is it legendary?
It's legendary. Yep.
Legendary. Yeah, I mean that's wide open. Like, what can you tutor for that's legendary, that's worthwhile playing?
Yeah, that has maybe combo potential, or has stacks potential, or
yeah, as long as all of your combo pieces or most of your combo pieces are legendary, and you have a way to get Sisay online, like there's many viable lines.
Yeah, and it's pretty close to the ground where like everything that is involved in any of these lists is like has weight to it. Like you can cast it and it still affects your board state in a positive way or hinders other people. I think in pretty much every list that I saw, Lavinia, Azorius Renegade was present. So there are like options for you to tutor into stacks. There are options for you to tutor into like ramp, like Lotho coming onto the battlefield will help you in the long run. If it's one turn cycle and it gets you 3 treasures, that is like it pays off instantly because it probably allows you to go into your combo the following turn if people aren't careful. So there is basically anything that involves legendaries. If you can combo with it, it is a viable option here. The one card that maybe I'm not surprised that I'm not seeing it. I'm just spitballing here, but like there are so many combos with Razaketh that it is maybe just too high in mana value for Sisay to even sniff at. But I'm sure there are ways people have figured it out to, be able to like tutor Razaketh onto the battlefield and go crazy with some like tutoring or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot to be said here, and it's almost too much to cover in a single 45 minutes to an hour of podcasting. But if you have a unique Sisay list out there, something that we haven't talked about, lines that you're exploring that help you get to your win cons more effectively, or maybe the way that you're playing it disguises your looks so your opponents don't know how to interact, leave a comment on YouTube or reach out to us on the Discord server, which there is a link in the description below. I'm pretty tapped out here, Flash. Are you ready to get out of here?
For sure.
All right. If you'd like to support the show, you can find the #1 podcast on the internet for Magic the Gathering and Dr. Pepper on YouTube, where you can like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more notifications. You can also find us on all major podcasting platforms, where we are super grateful if you would leave us a 5-star review. You can also support us directly on Patreon by becoming an official Pepperhead for $3 a month. Get you entry into each of our bi-weekly giveaways. You can also become a Cherry Vanilla Pepperhead like UWP Quirt, K Mr. K, and Will Rule, which will get you 2 free entries into each of these giveaways, which, by the way, we're doing the giveaway right now. We have our picker wheel here with all of the people who are entered, our patrons, and our free entrants. So let's go ahead and give it a spin. Congratulations! It's Will Rule. Kunai 08 one more time wins the giveaway.
This is rigged.
This is rigged. It feels rigged. I might have to pick a different picker wheel next time. So I even shuffled everything. Maybe I should have shuffled it on camera just to be safe. But Will Rule, congratulations. You get yourself another set of tokens and a copy of Hairghast, Erupting Nullkite. All right. Let's get the heck out of here, Flash, and have ourselves a great magical day. What do I say? Bye!
Bye.